Greetings, my fellow Milsim West nerds. I am James, and we're going to go over basically, so kind of like not only militia kit for dummies, but militia rules. Basically, I'm just going to call it 2.0. For whatever reason, my computer doesn't want to recognize my Yeti mic, and like my video formatting isn't working right, so this doesn't look like this is not the most professional quality of videos you're gonna see ever. But if you're coming here for pro quality, you just go ahead and unsub right now. The way this is going to work is we're going to kind of look at this from two different schools of thought or discussion or whatever, what have you. The first one is going to be straight up black and white, what's in the rules as far as compliance, what will get you past check-in, approved, onto the field and playing. And then sort of the second part is like the vibes, which is really tied in kind of the social aspect and more of the spirit. So the first part of this video, we're going to talk about the rule of militia, and the second part, we're going to talk about the spirit of militia. So I've got the Tacsop pulled up. This is like your bread and butter of information for more or less everything you would need to know for Milsim West events. When we're talking about the uniform requirements, the first part where it says approved camouflage patterns that I've highlighted kind of in that yellowish area, that's talking about what you can wear on your person as like more or less like kind of a base layer. So your uniform top and your uniform pants, this is what you would commonly be identified by. You're allowed to wear Woodland US M81, OD green, so that's like your OD green, your Ranger green, your generic earth tone military style green, or any RUSFOR camouflage. This is where it gets wild because there's a lot of Russian camouflages. Now, mind you, it says any RUSFOR camouflage. Well, if you read above militia right here where it says RUSFOR, any current or former use Russian camouflage with the exception of camogram. So that opens you up from everything going as far back as, let's just say, World War II, up to the 70s, up to your Cold War, up to what they're wearing today in a rifle company. And that's where it gets kind of weird. Kind of a spoiler looking ahead, you're really not going to see this any come into play for militia unless it gets like black. So black was like, if you look at snake suits, which is basically like a black jumpsuit and all that stuff, you'll see guys wearing black pants for militia. That's really the most I've seen black wear or anyone wear for the color of black as far as the militia goes. We'll talk about kind of like common loadout and themes and stuff like that in a minute. For your approved load bearing gear for militia, any chest rig or LBE is okay, and only non-NATO styled body armor or plate carriers are acceptable. And then rucks, obviously exempt from this rule. No one really cares about rucksacks. But for your body armor, basically what you're your fighting gear, it's pretty open to interpretation. And again, we'll talk about some of the specific executions of what you will see within that rule set. Going down to cold and wet weather gear or inclement gear, blah, 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 inclement weather gear, so on and so forth. For militia, it's any approved camouflage pattern, which is like the previously mentioned Woodland M81, Ranger green, black, or OD green. So when they say, again, they say things like approved camouflage patterns, they're saying that because there are so many Russian camouflage patterns in the Rolodex of options that you have, they're just going to say approved. This part right here that I highlighted is kind of like a strange, sort of this ambiguous gray area, catch-22, whatever you want. Let's say you wanted to wear something that wasn't previously mentioned. So we scroll up here, we look at militia, and it specifically says no tiger stripe, Rhodesian brushstroke, or desert night camo, plus a bunch of other stuff you can't wear. Let's say you wanted to wear jungle tiger. You and 8 other folks, 8 other players, so a total of 9 people must come together, agree, hey, we want to wear Jungle Tiger, and then you must request it through Milsim West, and then get it approved. Now, let's say you and 9 dudes want to wear Jungle Tiger. You say, hey, Milsim West, I would like to wear Jungle Tiger. And Milsim West goes, yeah, no, we're not going to approve that. That's it. Ta-da, wear something else. This really isn't an issue as often as you think it might be, especially now since this new Tacsop has been out for almost a complete year now. It's the 29th of October. If I remember correctly, this Tacsop debuted, well, the first time that these rules were enforced was at Clovis at the Kharkiv Pocket, at the Clovis event in Hill 559, which was earlier in February. So we're almost on a full year. In between then, they've had a bunch of events. They've got to work out the kinks. People online have had discussions, so it's really not an issue. Usually you're going to see this with first-timers. A lot of first-timers that are coming from a more casual sort of event, simmy thing. Your field kids, your folks that have been playing like regional fun pickup games here and there. Usually are like, I want to wear my very specific loadout that I always wear. And Milsim West just goes, no. Now we're going into basically the gun rules. Right in here, here's what you want to read. This little piece right in here, this is what you want to read. Any replica is allowed. That's, again, it's going to get crazy. Bear with me. Only one attachment is allowed if the participant decides to register for militia, so an AK variant with an optic or a pack or blah, blah, blah. All right, here's where it can get crazy. Any replica is allowed. So, if you want to do a Russian World War II loadout and find like an airsoft Nagant or something that obscure, you can do that. I've seen guys bring Matrix Tommy guns. You can do that. Any replica is allowed. Usually you're going to see guys just using like M4s or MP5s or something like that. It's really not a lot to do. Like, you're not going to see a lot of guys that are going to go like, well, I want to use a fucking Starship Troopers gun, because Cadre will look at that, go, that is not within the spirit of this event. Find another gun or fuck off. Which is why I love them. Now, in that sort of same what will get you kicked out, I have seen militia guys show up to events wearing, what was he wearing? Marine Woodland Marpat. So like the Marine digital stuff that's like brown and green, which is a really cool pattern, but it's out of compliance with the militia rule. So they're like, hey, you go change or you fuck off. And I don't know if he was like trying to just see if he could get away with it. He had a complete change of uniform in his car. The one attachment thing. All right. Okay, here's what happened. So this came out, right? And the Facebook groups and the memesters got a hold of it. And long story short, they made a bunch of new players, and a bunch of players as a whole think that a sling counted as an attachment. Iron sights counted as 2 attachments because you attach the... No, stop. That's too literal interpretation of the rule. Curb your fucking autism. Calm down. When they say attachment, they mean something like an optic or a tracer unit or a flashlight or like those little Magpul grips or something like that. Not something that you can attach. Like when I shoulder it, I've attached myself to the... Shut the fuck up. If it is something that would normally be permanently affixed to the rifle, it's fine. So like if you look at my packing videos, I put a wood dong on my AKM. That thing's not coming off easily without tools. It's on there. It's part of the rifle. Otherwise, based on the literal interpretation, handguards would count as an attachment. Like, but the upper receiver is attached to the... Shut up. Take your fucking pills. Go away. Go away, I'm going to hit you. Kind of the one sort of caveat thing that doesn't really count, that's not really a gun thing, is stuff like action cameras. Like if you're running like not like a scope cam, because the scope itself would count as an attachment, but like say you were just running like one of those little like those brain exploder cameras that I can't forget the names of, but it was just a camera and it's not designed to look like a piece of the gun. It's just boop, a camera on there. That's fine. Or if you got one of those Picatinny mounts for a GoPro and you attach it, that doesn't count either. And that is from several members of Cadre I have been to where I've specifically asked, like, hey, is this still rule? Like, no, don't, no GoPros. That cameras are exempt from that if they just look like cameras. If they are a scope that records, well, then that's designed to look like a scope. See what I'm saying? Now, those are the rules of the game, the law of the Warren, the words of the POTAT, if you will. So now we're going to kind of go into like the spirit of things, kind of like cool points, what you're usually going to see, and now we're going to talk more about the spirit of the event. The general vibe or spirit of the militia is like poor man's Eastern European farmer. So imagine you're a potato farmer in the Soviet Union who's been conscripted to fight NATO. What would you bring? Maybe at some point you were in the Red Army, which would statistically be accurate. And at one point or another, you still have pieces of, your old uniform, or maybe you didn't turn a helmet in or something like that, because that never happens, right? You're basically a scav from Tarkov, hence the reference picture that I've posted. This is the man that we all strive to be like. This is Father Prosen, Shawn Prosen, the great bishop of the Zapad. US M81 is authorized, and you can rock an M4 with it if you want, but you can only have one attachment, obviously. So you could do like an 80s US Army vibe with like an M16A2 long rifle with like an old LBE or an LCE. That'd be cool. Bro, I'm gonna be real. A squad of those dudes would look super fresh. However, you're gonna get a bunch of haters that say because you aren't cosplaying as a Soviet peasant, you shouldn't be doing it. You can, but you shouldn't, is the general consensus of what you're going to see online. Now, that is, if you're not posting online or doing, fine. You're not. If you're just like self-contained without social media, you'll be fine. But a lot of times, we're super happy about what we did, and we had a great time. So we're going to post pictures on our social media, in Milsim West Discord servers, Milsim West Facebook groups, so on and so forth. We're like, hey, this was great. And then someone's going to go, that's not within the spirit of the game. And you just go, hey, shut the fuck up. M81 is probably the cheapest or like the most abundant or cost-effective option out there. You could go to any surplus store and they're going to have new and used M81. I recommend getting some gently used stuff. We'll get into that in a few minutes. And most airsofters have an M4 anyway, so you just make sure you only have one attachment. Bing, bang, boom, you're Tacsop compliant. You notice in this picture, Shawn's doing M81 up top and then black pants on the bottom. That is Tacsop compliant, and he's also got an AK. That's just a different vibe of militia. That's fine. Usually that's probably more common. Again, I'll kind of talk more about some vibe examples in a minute. That's my homeboy Aiden. You will notice that he is rocking top and bottom OD green. He was also using an AK, but that's neither here nor there. Shout out to Aiden. He was a kick-ass RTO, and he got a coin for it. OD green or Ranger green or whatever green solid color you want to call it, commonly called Frogman, is also pretty popular. It's fairly common. I wouldn't say it's as common as M81. Again, you aren't gun LARPing the way others are going to want you to gun LARP, fucking blah, blah, whatever. OD Green is, again, another easy one because it's pretty easy to find, like, hiking gear. So if you're kind of like an REI head like I am, you've probably got stuff, or you can find stuff that is quality gear and Tacsop compliant in OD Green. The biggest example that comes to mind immediately is usually you'll find guys wearing REI green hiking pants and like a jacket, like a rain jacket or something like that. But it's Tacsop compliant. Remember, it doesn't have to be direct military or military replicated gear for militia. You can wear like some civilian colored stuff as long as it looks good. In fact, if you're militia and you can find Tacsop looking compliant wet weather gear or basically inclement weather gear, you definitely do that. Kind of another route you can go is basically a RUSFOR kit. You're just going the militia side instead of the RUSFOR side. Usually you will see somewhat older Soviet kits as militia guys instead of RUSFOR dudes. So let's say you do something like a Beslin kit, which is from 2004. Uh, Most players, or there's a majority or a group of players that think that that kit should stay on the militia side and not go RUSFOR, because RUSFOR should really be from like EMR and to now, which is like basically from like the Ukrainian invasion to now. So like within the last 10 years, give or take. Again, let's go back to how the rules are written. Any Russian camouflage, and that is for both RUSFOR and militia. So if I wanted to do a World War II loadout for the Russian side of things, I could do that, find whatever Russian submachine gun I can get, or a Nagant or whatever the hell, and sign up for RUSFOR. That's Tacsop compliant. When I get there and I'm surrounded by a bunch of dudes with like tricked out AK-12s, wearing EMR or ATACs or something like that, I'm going to feel real out of place. And everyone in my platoon or my squad is going to look at me and go, hey man, do you want to go to the militia platoon? Pause for a second. That kind of reminds me to bring up a point. Some events will have militia and RUSFOR separate platoons or companies. And some events, they will mix them together. For example, George Air Force Base is separate. So usually they do it either mostly by separate platoons. Sometimes if they have enough dudes, they'll do it by like separate companies. And Kharkiv is almost always mixed together. Colorado, when I went to Colorado earlier, that was mixed RUSFOR and militia together. So it didn't really matter for like the lore of the game. It was just whatever you want to dress up as. All right, now we're going to kind of get into like my personal recommendations, what I like to see and how I like to get down as a pretty much diehard militia guy. I'm a mix and match guy, and I like to do like 80s, 90s, like late 20th century stuff, because I think a lot of that camo looks really cool. I currently run a partisan top with green idle gear pants. That's what's in this picture here. I have a Smersh all that stuff that I got from Amped before the war. I have my E&L with my AKM, which has the little wood dong on there that I had my guys put on there for me. I like vintage stuff. I think vintage looks the coolest. I have been debating if I want to swap my Smersh out for like an Emerald Defender, but they're a little bit more than I kind of want to pay. And I feel like in California events, I'd probably get a little warmer and sweatier than I want, because it gets fairly warm for the most part at some of these California events, especially with kind of where they have in the year. So, like, I don't know, maybe if I went back to Colorado, maybe I'd think about rocking body armor just to keep some body warmth in there. But those, if you look at an Emerald Defender, my God, they look cool. They're not cheap. I've been trying to find one of these hats in Partisan. I don't know if they actually ever made them. I don't know. I also wear a 61 in Russian military hats. I have one of these hats. It's this style, which I really like, and that the Flora pattern, but it's a 60 or 59, and it's a little too snug than I want. Plus, I think it also, since it's used, I think it shrunk a little bit with probably like sweat and wear and stuff like that. So it's a little snug than I like, which sucks. So if you look on my Instagram, I have that hat in some pictures. That hat right there. I only wore that hat for pictures because it got a little tight on my head and it was not comfortable. So I'd be like, yeah, Manny, take the picture. Oh God, it hurts. I also kind of thought about adding black fingerless gloves. So you notice in this one, it's Partisan top and bottom. I was doing that for a little while. Then I saw a couple guys doing like tops with solid colored bottoms, either black like what Shawn did in one of those previous pictures, or green. I thought the green looked super sick, so I switched over to that. I try to keep everything basically green themed. That way I'm easier to identify in the daytime, which is kind of like why I like running the Wood AK, because it looks pretty distinct. Spirit of the event, uniforms are to be positively ID'd as quick as possible. If I'm wearing green pants and a mostly green top with a Wood AK, that's pretty easy to identify from a distance in the daytime. The easiest route when you're putting your kit together really is M81, like an M81 top and green or black pants. Just kind of whatever you want to do. Or you could do like M81 pants with like a black top or a green bottom. Personally, the camo top with the solid color pants goes the hardest, and this is kind of a unanimous decision. Russian gear and uniforms are pretty pricey because of the war, so most guys call it paying the war tax. Like if you see a piece of equipment online somewhere, you're like, oh wow, that's way more expensive than I remember. Most guys be like, it's the war tax, what are you gonna do? Again, back to my current loadout. So imagine this with like, I want to find like a longer head wrap, just a little bit longer in the back for extra cool factor, and like black fingerless weightlifting gloves. As nice. What I'm wearing as a shirt is called Partisan. Sometimes you'll see it called Leto or SS Leto or Lido. Betty's Reka or Gold Leaf. If you've seen Red Dawn, how they have the green and white camo, that's the white equivalent of it. That's I think they call that birch, or no, Betty's. It's something to do with the translation. Comes to like basically it meant to blend into the birch bark trees. But you can get gold leaf or I think white leaf or something like that. Or sometimes it's also called Red Dawn camo. Flora's pretty easy to get a hold of. That picture I showed earlier, that was Flora. It's kind of like the Russian M81. It's just a little bit longer and curvier, I guess. For places where you can get Russian gear, it's pretty much Facebook groups for Russian gear, Milsim West Discords, and then like kind of quote-unquote offshoot Milsim West Discords where most Milsim West players are hanging out, like the DOA Discord. You'll probably see a few guys trying to sell some stuff in there. Airsoft shops aren't going to have it. Fields aren't going to have it. Good luck trying to get it in like Bob's Airsoft Fields Discord, because maybe 5 of those guys are Milsim West heads. eBay is also a really good spot too. I've got tons of stuff off eBay. If you're trying to get some Russian gear, you need to buy it at least 2 months out from whatever event you want to go to, because that shipping, it gets fun. There are some commercial websites in various European countries that are doing stuff, but the inventory, they're kind of running dry. I think Cold Camo just like stopped doing business. Gray Shop, I don't think he's really getting any restocks anytime soon for a lot of stuff. It's honestly just easier to hit up eBay and Facebook groups. You could probably get a top for about 60 to 80 bucks pending shipping. Probably get a top and bottom for about 120 to 180, maybe 200 if we're going to factor shipping in there from a European country, and depending on what pattern it is. Good luck trying to find Spectre. You don't really need a Smersh. You can kind of get away with just a regular chest rig, but a Smersh is probably going to be anywhere from like 150 to 220, depending on what it is and who's selling it and where they are. Again, pending shipping. This is again where we start to get real nerdy as far as like the lore and the cosplay of it. I don't use a lot of surplus camping gear, or if I do, it's like modern surplus camping gear, like the USMC Bivy that I just got. That's a modern piece of equipment. Most my gear, as far as like my sustainment gear, is just commercial hiking gear that I got from REI, because I friggin' love REI. My sleeping bag I got from REI, my hiking shoes I got from REI, so on and so forth. I don't do 100% cosplay. You'll have guys that will. They will go straight up, everything is Soviet Union surplus, even down to like the EMR rucksack they're using. I'm not doing that. I got my nice Alice pack, if you want to see that on a couple packing videos, and that's as old as we get. This is James Toya. He works for KWA. He is my friend. He is a very nice man, and I've made fun of him a lot because James showed up to Milsim West wearing new M81s. So if you look right in this area, you can see the crease in his pants. Now this was on Saturday this was Sunday, I believe, when we were done. So he had a crease in his pants, and he was wearing M81 with desert boots. Now, from someone that was in the Army when we were wearing that stuff, I just like, right? Desert boots and like anything green, that's like a fashion faux pas for me. Like it just looks weird. But again, that is triggering because of my blah blah army bullcrap. But if you can avoid it, try not to wear new stuff or stuff that looks new. Bro, just roll around in the dirt, beat it against a river rock. I don't care. Show up with it looking used because it looks weird. The level of detail that you put into your kit is basically going to show other players how enthusiastic you are for the event you're about to all go through. And for whatever reason, militia kids are like peasant fashion enthusiasts. So the poorer you look, the cooler you look. But also, you can look lazy. So let's say you show up with like a Walmart M81 t-shirt that you found and black Wrangler jeans. You're Tacsop compliant, yeah, technically, but you're telling other players you kind of don't really care. Most of us are just going to think you're there to airsoft. We're going to stay away from you. I want to see the amount of effort and enthusiasm that you put into your loadout like any other cosplayer would. Now imagine you're at an anime con or like a comic convention and you're watching a costume contest and you're a costume person yourself. And you see one of the contestants shows up in like a Walmart or in a store-bought costume. Boo. Immediate boo, right? Because that person didn't take the time to make it themselves. They just wanted to do it. They went out, they bought something quick. You're not going to have a very high opinion of that person, and you wonder why they even entered into the costume contest if they weren't going to put in the effort and energy to do something themselves and kind of just like go all the way. That's kind of how a lot of Milsim players kind of feel. Now, Milsim West players will feel to an extent. Again, we are peasant fashion enthusiasts. I'll be kind of honest. I made fun of the Biohazard guys as soon as I saw them at check-in because they had M81 pants and black t-shirts, and I was like, what are those? Again, it was Tacsop compliant, but lacking the imagination that a peasant fashion enthusiast would want to see. Now, throwing a bone, extending an olive branch to just sort of anyone that might be in kind of that same situation for whatever reason, if it's your first event, and it was their first event, which is why I didn't really troll them that hard. If it's your first event, most of these guys are going to give you a nerdy pass because we're just excited you're out there playing for the first time. If we see you in like a regular at an event, like you've been to like 3 of them, we're like, hey, why do you still look like you're new? You know what I mean? Like, to an extent, players will hold other players accountable, more so for the fashion than anything else. Again, peasant fashion enthusiasts. One of the big standouts for me that separates kind of most your average Milsim West tryhard from like your casual field player is airsofters will head to toe cover themselves in patches. Oh, like they think it adds to their skill. They've got all the G&G, the KWA, the Elite Force, they got the Titan, everything. Patches all over the place. Take that shit off. If it doesn't correlate to the uniform, like if it's not a rank insignia or a unit patch or something like that, take that shit off. I kind of feel the same way about pistol belts. Now, this is also assuming that you are not someone that has a gun with MED. So if you've got like a sniper rifle or an LMG, yeah, obviously pistol is a utilitarian thing for you. If you're a rifleman and you've got a solid rifle, why are you wearing a pistol belt with 4 magazines? Also, how did you, a potato farmer, get a Ronin belt with a level 3 Black Hawk holster? That's kind of weird. And that's it. If you've got any questions, throw them in the comments. I love you guys. I will see you at Kharkiv. Again, I apologize for the terrible quality of this video. I don't know what's going on in my setup, but I've been wanting to do this for a while. And that's kind of it. See you at Kharkiv.